Welcome to Buckets, presented by FanDuel. I am your host, Brandon Anderson. I'm here with Joe Delara and Brian Fonseca. This is your FIBA World Cup preview hype show. Preview, post-view, mid-view. We're already going, guys. We're already off and watching basketball. We already completed the first round of group play. We got more group play coming. We're just going to get into FIBA World Cup basketball. There's 32 teams. We're technically down to 16 teams, though everybody's still playing. So I'm just going to give a quick kind of lay of the land here. What is this tournament? What's happening? And then Joe and Brian will get into it. Talk Team USA, USA's path going forward. Is the home team going to win this thing? Is it going to go to Canada? That's the hype team right now. Is it some of the other options here? What bets can we be making? What can we be playing? Group play. These games are happening overnight. These are happening at like 2, 3, 4 in the morning, 7 in the morning, maybe a little, watch some basketball while you're having your cereal and your coffee in the morning. So these games, you can watch them on ESPN Plus or Courtside 1891. I don't know why we call it that, but that's great. Look for that. Look on the NBA app. You can watch it there. We're in the second stage of group play. So 32 teams that are competing to win now. We're down to 16. So USA has already advanced. Hooray for us. We advanced with Greece from our group. And yeah, I'm just going to go we, right? We're USA on this podcast. So I'm going to do a we here. It's Team USA. We beat Greece already the first time around. They move on with us to the new group of 4. So that result carries over. That round starts Friday. So Friday, early morning, our time. Those games will be happening Friday and Sunday for this new group. And then 2 out of those 4 teams, there's 4 groups of 4, will advance to the knockout play. Knockout is 8 teams then. So that starts Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. Again, overnight. That's when all these games are going to be. You're going to have to set your clock or set your DVR. USA has been, I think, on ESPN2, so you should at least be able to catch those games on the DVR if you got the old cable box. So knockout play all next week, single elimination. The final, guys, Sunday, September 10th. Screw me. That's the first day of the NFL season and the U.S. Open Finals. And apparently I'm going to be getting up early to watch USA hopefully win a gold medal at the World Cup. It's going to be a big day. So, yeah, that's it. That's the tournament. There is consolation play. So whatever place you want to play for, we're playing for it. We got a 17th through 32nd place tournament that by the time you listen to this will have already started overnight Thursday. So those games, we call that the French International Open because France is already out. They're already out, guys, and they suck, and they got all of us because we were all on in France. So that's kind of the lay of the land. Joe, welcome. Do you got anything else to add to lay of the land before we get into this?
I just think it's been a blast so far. So I hope you guys are tuning in, and these games coming up should be a little bit more interesting. So pretty excited to dive into this and, just not sleep.
Who needs sleep? I can't believe I'm hosting this. I'm like in 200% NFL mode right now. And I'm like, oh, sure. While I'm between NFL 5,000 word daily articles, let's do a little international basketball overnight. Let's do some of that. So yeah, we are already, if you have not seen it yet, check the site. We've got articles been going up every day. The 3 of us putting in some of our best bets and getting their props for this. Check on FanDuel. There's a whole listing of futures, props, daily picks, and we're going to get into a lot of that stuff here. Some of it, like these games just happened today. We're just finalizing these groups and moving on. So lines are not necessarily all there yet, but we're getting into it. Brian and Joe both have been hitting a lot of picks. My picks are also present. So Brian, how are you feeling about the tournament so far? How have you been enjoying things?
Shocker that France is out, which I did not appreciate. Approximately 48 or so hours after saying that they were my pick to win the whole thing. But I've been right on a lot of other stuff so far. Dominican Republic winning the group. They were my sleeper at the beginning. We'll get into them a little bit more as we go here. But ultimately been enjoying the tournament. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I feel like I was one of the only people writing about this at a couple other outlets before I got here. Being like, hey, World Cup qualifiers are going on. Joe Johnson's playing for Team USA. Isaiah Thomas is playing for Team USA. Langston Galloway is playing for Team USA. And they're in the middle of Havana, Cuba. And they're playing against, Yacel Rivero, who plays in Spain professionally. Like nerdy things like that. So World Cup qualifiers was fun, and obviously now the World Cup. We only get this once every 4 years, and I look more forward to this than the Olympics in basketball because you get more teams here. It's 32 teams as opposed to just 12 in the Olympics, and it's a shorter sprint, and it's very hard to qualify for the Olympics now. Very hard. Especially, after Yugoslavia broke up into like 8 more nations, and like a lot of them are good at basketball.
Yeah, well, thank God for that. Otherwise, we get Luka and Jokic on one team dismantling Team USA at these tournaments. So
yeah, they actually broke
Team
up.
Yugoslavia.
Yeah, right. They broke up so the USA can continue to be good.
Yeah, we play the long game on that one.
Yeah, even Serbia and Montenegro were together for a period of time, and now they're split, and they're both here in the final 16.
Yeah, you're starting to understand our government's foreign policy a little bit here now. So it's all for USA basketball.
Otherwise, we would have had Nikola Jovic playing on the same team as Nikola Vucevic.
Yeah,
right. Well, some of these guys, like we would have had some of these dudes wouldn't even make the team probably because like that's how loaded a Team Yugoslavia would have been that, like just can't qualify anymore. There's only so many spots there. So Brian, before we get too far, since you were just talking about kind of the qualification and the path to the Olympics and that sort of thing. So you mentioned in our Slack channel, these games for 17th and 21st and 28th, like they all still matter too. So talk to me a little bit about, first of all, before I forget, where are we playing right now? And then what's the kind of the process look out for here of why do we still care about France's games and whoever's left?
Well, France, not particularly because Europe only gets a couple of qualifying spots. So the way this works now is the rest of the teams who are in the quote unquote losers bracket, they have something to play for because they're all playing to potentially qualify for an Olympic qualifying tournament that could potentially lead to an Olympic berth, which in a way is to say you're qualifying to qualify for something that you may not get. But, it's more games under your belt, better for the program, things of that nature. And for some teams, like one example is Nigeria, who's not in this World Cup, but they were in the 2019 World Cup. They were on the loser's side of the bracket, and they were able to, and I'm pulling it up here, they were 17th out of the 17 to 32, and they qualified for the Olympics because everyone else from the African regions just did worse in qualifiers. It's just really, or in the World Cup rather, which is really what it was. Iran is another one who they qualified to the Olympics despite finishing 23rd in the last World Cup. So in Asia and Africa, you need to sort of see like how this materializes, not so much for, say, Europe, because that top 2 European teams that qualify are going to be toward the top of this tournament. And then France actually gets an automatic qualifying bid because they're the host. So if it wasn't for that, then they would have had to actually play a tournament against really good teams and qualify. But for the Americas, you might be just looking at USA and Canada getting those spots. Asia gets a spot for the Olympics. Africa gets a spot. Europe gets 2. The Oceania region, that's going to be Australia. we know that at this point. But that's sort of what teams are playing for, to at least qualify for a shot at the Olympics or to straight up get in the Olympics.
And where what countries have we been playing in right now?
Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan.
Okay,
and
that's what I thought.
a lot of it is going to be in Japan and Philippines as we get deeper into the tournament.
Okay, so hence why U.S. time, these are middle of the night times. So let's get into Team USA, because obviously that's where we got to start. We're the home team here. So I got to start with this. Josh Hart into the starting lineup. Joe, New York Knickerbockers, Josh Hart. We got 2 starters on Team USA. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Team Villanova, Team USA, Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram, big name on the internet discourse this week. Heading to the bench. What do we think about this in the starting lineup? Are you hyped for your Josh Hart starting lineup? Is this permanent? Is it good? What do you think, Joe?
I mean, I think it's good. Josh Hart kind of fits the starting lineup like a glove, realistically. He can he's multifaceted in what he can provide, and he's not a ball dominant player. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to make an impact. And that's something that Brandon Ingram has historically needed. And it's kind of one of those things, like even when you look at the Pelicans, right, during the last season, there were times when Brandon Ingram wasn't playing and the Pelicans were playing quite all right, So I think that that's something where he's one of the longer tenured players on Team USA, but his game just, I feel like it's not really needed the way this roster is constructed. And I do think that it's probably a permanent change unless all of a sudden, like maybe somebody gets hurt, like an Ant or somebody like that, who is supposed to be a primary scorer. But I do like the move. I think that it kind of creates a little bit more balance for this team. And Jaren Jackson Jr., as good as he is defensively, right? He's not a particularly good rebounder. And there were some quotes, I think, I don't remember if it was Spo or if it was Kerr, but they were like, we talk about guys getting 50-50 balls on the rebounds. Josh Hart gets the 30-70 balls. So it's like that's something that's important, and especially at this stage of the tournament now, where you have a guy that's willing to put his body on the line, kind of actually hustle, and he's used to that role, as opposed to a lot of these guys who, on their teams, they're the number one player. Like they don't need to go get that rebound because there's somebody else that's the Josh Hart going to get that rebound. So Team USA did a great job building the New York Knicks. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Joe, you and I have long been the Tyrese Halliburton fan club, and it's been driving me crazy watching these lead-up games and now the games. Like, what are we doing? Bring Tyrese Halliburton off the bench. To me, he's the guy on the team. But as we watch the games, I want to believe this is intentional at this point. Guys, I feel like our starters kind of just hang and like they do all right, and we basically play teams relatively even. We don't really lose then. And then the bench comes in and we run teams off the court. Like Halliburton, and it's not just him, I think it's intentional. I hope it's intentional. I want to give Kerr credit for being intentional, but Paolo playing like small ball center off the bench. This is a team like they're getting after it in transition and they are running it down teams' throats. And again, like you said, Joe, we built the Knicks. We built the Knicks that can kind of hang with a starting unit and then bring in that bench unit. And to me, even as international ball is caught up, and like Team USA doesn't even necessarily have the best player in a game anymore in some of these games. We'll get to that. But what we do have, what we're going to still have an advantage of as Team USA is the depth and like the ability to withstand an injury to a key player, because you can still go down and you can bring in Ingram into the Ant role if you need to for that sort of thing. And you can go to the bench and have Tyrese Halliburton and Paolo Banchero, number one pick, rookie of the year, just coming in and like filling it up. So to me, the bench unit, like I wish I could play like a live 4-minute period right when the bench kicks in. Like this would be, if this was Knicks basketball, I'd be like, okay, second quarter play, right? Like that's when the bench unit's going to play. That's when you want to grab this team. So for me, that's kind of the takeaways so far. And I'm curious how that will carry over against, well, real teams. So far, Brian, we have played as Team USA, New Zealand, Greece without Giannis Antetokounmpo, plenty of other Antetokounmpos, not Giannis though, and then Jordan. So what have you learned, if anything, from the 3 games USA has played so far?
Not much, if I'm not gonna lie to you, because I went to this tournament and I was like, man, their path is, and this is why they were. I didn't want to bet them because I was like, really, they're only minus 125, and even now they're still minus 140 or whatever the case may be. We can get to that a little bit later on, but I think that we weren't going to learn much because they're not going to get tested in group play, is what I was saying, and they'll probably get a little bit of a push now with Lithuania in particular because they're a little bit more of a real team that they're going to see. Because Jordan, with all due respect, I love Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. Like I'm probably Rondae Hollis-Jefferson's biggest advocate outside of Chester, Pennsylvania, and Arizona, the state of Arizona. Because I covered him when he was with the Nets, and he was one of my favorite athletes that I've covered. Really fun personality, could play, had one of the underrated 2017-18 seasons. I will always believe that, right? And he was putting up big numbers, but at the same time, it's with Jordan, so I didn't think that his team was going to help him out a ton. Although I was surprised he had 39-9 and 4 in one game. There was that, and then with Greece, I didn't expect much of a push because this isn't a very strong Greece team to me, and they had Giannis Antetokounmpo not playing, and New Zealand was missing 5 of their best players in terms of Steven Adams, who doesn't play for them ever. So if you want to count him, fine, but he wasn't there. Corey Webster's a really good player from New Zealand. He wasn't playing. Ty Webster, he wasn't playing. Thomas Abercrombie, who was on a New Zealand national team, he had retired. Rob Lowe's another player who has been on their national team. He retired. So New Zealand's missing a bunch of guys and, was competitive with Team USA for like 2.5 quarters, which I found interesting. And then Team USA has a switch that very few teams have in this tournament. So they could just turn it on when they kind of feel like it, right? But now Montenegro, I don't think is going to offer up a ton of resistance. Neither is Lithuania, but the interior battle is the one for me to watch, because now Jaren Jackson Jr. and Bobby Portis and Walker Kessler, how much they play, we'll see. But they may have to, because Jaren Jackson Jr. might be in foul trouble against Jonas Valanciunas and Nikola Vucevic. So I want to see how they handle those matchups. I feel like these are pretty good tests before getting into the quarterfinals, but I think they'll beat both teams.
Yeah, I as you get to the matchups there, Joe, what do you make of just kind of what if you were coaching one of the teams playing Team USA? Well, give me your scouting report on this USA team. Like, what are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What or maybe who is missing from this USA team? Like, especially as Brian kind of talked about, like the strength on the size for some of these teams, and obviously that's pretty common for a lot of these, especially Euro teams here. What's your Team USA scouting report?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to attack the interior, right? Like, try to bang them up a little bit. And there's one less foul, so it's the games are obviously a little bit shorter. But Jaren Jackson Jr., we know that he kind of has had foul difficulties, and he didn't even in the first game of the tournament where he fouled that, or he either had 4, or he fouled out, whatever it was. But that's when Paolo had that big game. I think you want to see, or you want to force them to play Walker Kessler if you can, because that's kind of the one pivot that Kerr has like kind of refused to do, or like been very resistant to, which I've been surprised about. It's kind of a weird thing, I guess, to say like you want them to play Walker Kessler when I think the US should be playing Walker Kessler. But I think it's just that you're throwing them out of their rhythm, right? And I think that's kind of what the key is. It's going to be very hard to attack them otherwise. I mean, I guess the best, or the next like weakest point, right, is basically like if you have Brunson defending like a ball dominant point guard, that's not really going to go super well for Team USA, because he's just not the best defender. He's just not that big. Like, he's got a lot of hustle, but he's just not a big dude. So those are probably the two ways that you try to attack Team USA, or you just shoot a lot of threes and just try to out variance them. So I do think that those are your options. And try to bring them down, slow down the pace, and keep them out of transition, because they've been able to get a lot of easy buckets just in transition opportunities off of turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is not the NBA. There are no 7-game series here. This is March Madness, and Team USA is the 1 seed, and it's a single game, and you never know when the shots start to fall. You better believe Team USA is going to be the team feeling the pressure. They're the 1 seed. They do not. No one out there wearing red, white, and blue wants to come home without a gold medal. That is not a thing that you want hanging on your career resume. You do not want to be coming home without that gold medal. It is the expectation, and heaven forbid you lose to Canada of all teams, because you got to face those guys on your team and in games every day too, as many of the other teams, but especially Canada's got a lot of NBA players. So it is a point of pride and a point of pressure. If there's a close game and we get to the third quarter, fourth quarter, like, there's no second chances. You can't just, well, in group still, we got that. But as we get to knockout play, suddenly where we're going to, Halliburton hasn't played a playoff game yet in the NBA. Anthony Edwards hasn't played outside of the first round. He's had some moments. He was certainly good against Denver this year, but a first round playoff game versus a semifinal at a World Cup, I'm sorry, but the stakes are higher there. Like, there's a lot on the line, and a lot of these guys haven't had that moment yet. So I think that is a thing to watch with this team. It's a young, inexperienced team, at least at that level. So to me, that's a little bit maybe what's missing. I would have loved to have seen just one Jason Tatum on the team, or Devin Booker. Like, give me the one face of the team, the one, and those guys aren't old really compared to NBA players, but compared to this team, give me the guy that's played in the finals before, right? Who's been on the stage, and like, look, I think Ant's going to take the shot if it comes down to it, but I think Devin or Jason should have taken the shot if it came down to it. Like, they've done it, and they've been on the stage and had that moment. So I do think there is that there. Let's get into props a little bit, give the people some actionable stuff here in Team USA. Game to game, there's not a lot of lines up yet. We've got Friday morning, Team USA will be playing Montenegro. It is a 4:40 Eastern AM tip-off in American time. USA minus 25.5 against Montenegro. So probably not a spread you're going to be betting, but let's talk props, not necessarily just for that game, but Team USA going forward. Brian, what are some USA prop angles that you've been looking at?
I think if you haven't bet Team USA to win it and you think they're going to win, now is probably the time to jump on it at minus 145. I feel like soon, especially if they start dominating Montenegro and Lithuania and they get into the quarterfinals and the field shrinks, to from 16 to 8. I think from there, you're going to look at a price that's probably not as favorable. And now it's still pretty decent considering that. And this is why they were big favorites to begin with, is really their path. I feel like their team is really good, but it's not overwhelming to the point where they can't lose in a one game sample size to anybody else. The reason that they finished 7th in the last World Cup was because they lost as soon as they got to the quarterfinals, despite being undefeated until then. They ran up against France, they lost by 10, and then they lost immediately after to Serbia in the 5th through 8th classification game, and then they found themselves playing for 7th place against Poland, who they beat. So, yeah, to your point, Brandon, this can sort of turn very quickly, even if you're undefeated these first 5 games. So, and that last team, people want to, get on that last team. That last team, in retrospect, maybe doesn't seem great, but it actually was pretty good going into it. And they were the favorites to win the whole thing. They just didn't, right? So in terms of that, I think you could look at Team USA just winning it as a future. I feel like if you haven't done it, now is probably the time. It's not much worse of a price than it was before. It was minus 145 earlier to start the tournament. It was like minus 125, So you're still looking at similar value there. And I think from a game-to-game basis, just these next 2 games, Nikola Vucevic and Jonas Valanciunas, you have to look at their over in rebounds. And you just have to, because like these are some of the guys. Donatas Matsuhunas from Lithuania also. Like you got to look at some of these other guys in terms of rebounding the ball against Jaren Jackson Jr., who in his own right, not an awesome rebounder. Team USA is going to have to gang rebound, and they'll have some success there. So that's something to look forward to. And then on the Tyrese Halliburton point, like I feel like we are going to see, we have to see him more. And I'm going to be looking at what his points are, what his assists are. And Anthony Edwards' points I probably will always look at, just because you feel like now that the games may start to get a little bit tighter, maybe beginning with Lithuania or maybe in the quarterfinals, you would expect Anthony Edwards to have to start hitting 20 points a little more regularly. So I'm curious to see where his prop is going to be as well.
I like it. Joe, what props are you looking at?
Yeah, I agree with the Ant idea in terms of getting his points. I think that they've kind of been limiting his minutes, kind of getting everybody some time out there, especially in these games they were supposed to win. So I think that with this spread in this first game might not look there right now, but I do think that I'm looking at Vucevic rebounds in that game. It's opened at 7.5 at minus 130 at FanDuel. That's the first book to post a line. I'm betting that immediately. In 5 career games against Jaren Jackson Jr., he's averaging 13 rebounds per game and has never had fewer than 10. So, like, this line is just atrocious. This line's atrocious. Like, I get that there's less time. It's just, it's a really bad line. Like, and those are games, some of them I'm sure, like, some of them I probably had Steven Adams there too. So, I mean, this line is ridiculous. Like, Vucevic, he's one of those guys, like, he's just is going to grab his rebounds. He's going to give you like 18 points. Maybe he'll have that spike and score 25, but like he'll have the spike with the rebounds, especially in a good matchup. So the 7.5 is ridiculous. I think as soon as you can bet like 10 plus, 12 plus, 13, whatever, I would take it. Like, I mean, his high was 17. So, I mean, like, do with that what you will. But I think he's going to do pretty well on the glass there. The one thing that I was surprised about, though, was I was looking at the Valanciunas stats head-to-head against Jaren Jackson Jr., and he's actually run into a lot of foul trouble for whatever reason. I'm not sure if it's because of the way that Jaren Jackson Jr. maybe can pull him out a little bit, or if it was a little bit more in relation to the fact that you have Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, like Dylan Brooks just like running at him, but like, you know, drawing fouls, drawing contacts. So I'm not sure if maybe that was a little bit of what it was, but Vooch was definitely the spot that I was like, circled this. I want to bet this to look at some of those alternate lines in this game moving forward too.
Yeah, escalator season for sure on those. I definitely had that circled as the key thing with this Group J is the new USA group. So USA, Greece, Lithuania, Montenegro. USA has already played Greece. We do not play them again now. That win USA has over Greece just carries on over into the round. The point differential comes over. The wins come over. So USA and Lithuania are both 3-0. So Montenegro and Greece are already up against it. Like they come into a new group with ground to make up. You basically probably have to win both games, I would think, in most cases to overcome the deficit. So, yeah, I think the key in this group is that size differential and Jaren Jackson Jr. foul trouble, like you guys have pointed out. Am I crazy here? The other Friday game is right now at FanDuel, our sponsor, is Lithuania -7.5 against Greece. Greece is not good. Lithuania is like a legit good basketball team. I'm all over Lithuania on that. Is that crazy?
No, I think that's smash. Like I've been fading Greece the whole tournament. My pre-tournament write-up was Germany to go head-to-head, like further than Greece. I thought Greece was about to get bounced by New Zealand. So, like here we are, and now they get to play Lithuania. What do you think's going to happen here?
and thankfully had New Zealand covering plus 10.5. Which then went to plus 9.5 and still covered anyway. Honestly, New Zealand should have won that game and probably would have had they had at least two of the guys that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, I'm with you, Brandon. I think Lithuania could win that by double digits against Greece. Who I just don't think this is a great Greece team, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I don't think so. And again, Montenegro maybe beats Greece, but they probably would have to beat USA and Greece in order to move on here. So Lithuania beats Greece comfortably, as we're saying. I'll take Lithuania and the points in that one. And then I think basically that's that, we move on. USA plays Lithuania Sunday, 8:40 a.m. tip. Again, that'll be on actual television if you need to catch it there. Do we have any fears for USA against Lithuania? At that point, presumably, both teams are 4-0. They've already both advanced through to the knockout round, so it's not a knockout game. I kind of, as a fan of Team USA, I would almost want the game to be close. I'd love for USA to get a little push when we can't actually get knocked out. So, and I think Lithuania, they're a team that it doesn't really matter who's wearing the jersey. They always play fundamental, good basketball. They play like, picture what you think European basketball looks like. You're watching it with Lithuania basketball. Like this is just, it's a country that is just enraptured with basketball. The fans are crazy. They love the game. It's a lot of fun watching them. And I just think that's the sort of team that's just going to push USA all the way. And USA, one thing is the athletic advantage that we used to have, like the original Dream Team 92, each year that athletic advantage drops a little bit. Like the rest of the world is putting closer athletes to what the Americans have. And again, that's where the depth helps a little bit, I think. But I don't know that that's quite, we can't just run past everyone and dunk over all the other teams now. And a team that shows up and plays hard and fundamentals like Lithuania, I think can hang. Brian, do you feel like Lithuania can do more than hang? Can they make a game of it or win that game?
They have the physicality level where if a team is going to push USA that's clearly not in the same sphere of talent, right? If it's going to be a team that's just so overmatched in terms of just overall skill level, and they're not going to be as overmatched as Montenegro or Jordan or New Zealand, but you get what I'm saying. Team USA is still going to be a pretty decent favorite for that. Then you would have Lithuania potentially pushing them because of their physicality, because of the way they play. If they could play mostly mistake-free basketball, which is going to be tough, and hit the requisite three-pointers, if they're able to stretch out and bend this Team USA defense, and maybe you can push them into the fourth quarter. Because I agree, if you're looking at Team USA, if you're rooting for them, if you're betting on them, you're probably rooting for them. But if you're looking at like what they can do in the tournament, and you want them to be pushed before the quarterfinals so that their first game in the quarterfinals isn't tough, like, yeah, you would want them to get pushed in this game versus a team that they should beat. And if they were to fumble around and lose the game, it's not going to cost them that much anyway. Now, it would mean a tougher matchup in the quarterfinals because you'll face somebody who's more in a rhythm who's got a little bit of a higher seeding, but at the same time, Team USA could obviously beat anyone in this tournament. So I think Lithuania, you want them to sort of push Team USA to maybe only winning by 10 or something along those lines, where it's in the fourth quarter, it's pretty tight. They're up 6 with 5 minutes to go. Maybe they pull away a little bit and they struggle with Jonas Valanciunas a little bit and sort of have to, okay, when this happens against Canada or when this happens against Australia or Germany or whoever it is moving forward or Spain, then here's how you can sort of navigate it and solve that problem.
Yeah, I think that's dead on. Joe, be a bookmaker for a second. It's USA, Lithuania. You got to set the line. What kind of spread are you giving me on USA?
I think assuming Lithuania destroys Greece, right? Like, let's say Lithuania wins, it covers, they win by like 15. I think we probably see a line around 17.5, just given the fact that Lithuania beat Montenegro. I assume, we'll see if USA covers. That's a big number. Like, it's just kind of one of those where you can kind of backdoor that in. And they do have legitimate NBA talent. I think we probably see like 17.5.
That, I gotta say, that feels a little high to me. My instinct, I was thinking maybe like a 12-ish range. I'm taking the points if we get 17.5. I have to say, but
no,
Brian, what do you think?
I hope that's the line.
Yeah, right.
I hope it's 17.5. I was thinking more in that 12.5.
Yeah,
13 maybe. I could even like it. It depends on how these next games go, right? Like,
sure,
what if they don't cover against Montenegro? Then you could be talking about even 10.5.
Sure.
If Lithuania covers against Greece and USA doesn't cover against Montenegro, I could see that barely being in double digits. To which I think a lot of people are probably going to hammer Team USA, and they may be right to do so. But I think that's maybe what we're looking at. The Montenegro matchup, yeah. I don't think they're going to get a ton of resistance, though. It's Nikola Vucevic, it's Kendrick Perry, but I think that's a game that USA should cover.
Yeah, I think they should take care of business against Montenegro pretty easily, and effectively USA would have to lose both of these games to not make it into knockout play at this point, as far as I can see, or at least lose them and probably lose by wide margins to be able to do that. So let's pick up the pace a little bit and look through these other groups. So 3 other groups of 4. So next group is Group I. Serbia and the Dominican Republic, both undefeated, 3-0. Brian nailed that one so far. That was his big pick, big sleeper.
Yeah.
In that same group, Brian, Puerto Rico, 2-1 so far, and Italy, 2-1. Brian, I got to give you the floor. Friday, one of the first games in this new group, the Dominican Republic, -9.5 against your Puerto Rico, your Dominican Republic. Which one are you? Tell us the story. Why does this game matter so much?
No, I'm Puerto Rican. Although,
yeah, I know that, but your team Dominican Republic so far for the tournament.
And that's the thing. But yeah, so it's like I'm not gonna lie. Like we all do an emotional bet every now and then. So this may be one where it's like I might have to stay away for my own good. But if I'm like being real about this. Yeah, I would just say like this is like Boston, New York level rivalry for people who aren't Latino and don't know about this. But PR and DR, I mean, we do love each other, but at the same time in sports, like we're always competing. You saw the World Baseball Classic in March; it was intense. It was also a lot of dancing amongst each other in the audience, but we wanted to kick their ass and they wanted to kick our ass, and we ended up winning, although we paid for it because Edwin Diaz tore his Achilles. So here in basketball. It's become more of a rivalry because the Dominican Republic team is good. They added Karl Anthony Towns, who played with them as a teenager. He is now on the roster. Other familiar faces, Angel Delgado. If you're a fan of Seton Hall or you watch the Big East, he was on those Isaiah Whitehead teams. It was really good and has been good as a professional basketball player. Even had a brief stint with the Clippers at one point, but he's been successful in Europe. Andres Feliz is the point guard. He's had some big games in the World Cup so far. LJ Figueroa used to play at St. John's, and if you watch Through the Fire, the Sebastian Telfair documentary on ESPN a long time ago, you may remember a guy walking around with a jersey named Pena on Lincoln. Antonio Pena, he's on this team, and he was Sebastian Telfair's power forward or center in high school and went to playing in Villanova. He actually plays minutes on this team, like 12, 13 minutes a game. So this Dominican Republic team is fun. They squeezed by in group play a little bit. I thought they would put Angola away a little bit easier, but they really struggled from three in 2 of their games. And I think this is an interesting one, not just for personal reasons, but like Puerto Rico is not. This is where I say our and we and all this stuff. This is not one of our best Puerto Rican national teams. I'm not gonna lie to you, but we can get hot from three and sort of create that variance. Shot 16 of 34 from three against China, put them away, won by almost 20. Shot almost 40% against Serbia and brought that game after trailing by 30, almost within single digits at one point. And then against South Sudan, the worst performance of the World Cup that we've had so far, probably, considering that I thought we should have beat South Sudan by more. Shot 36% from three. So actually been shooting well from three the entire tournament, whereas Dominican Republic shot 20% against Angola, 41% against Italy, 21% against the Philippines. They're a little more up and down, but ultimately, Karl Anthony Towns is the best player in this game, and Puerto Rico's best player is Tremont Waters. So like it's kind of a different ball game there. Tremont Waters is excellent. In terms of what I'm looking at, I did bet Puerto Rico plus 9.5. Now, maybe there's a little bit of emotion there, but at the same time, it was 8.5 before, and I saw it grow. And I was like, listen, if there's one thing I know about this rivalry, you could expect a lot of close games. It's just one of those things, like it just happens, right? It's like the Heat and the Celtics. Close games just happen between these two teams, right? And Tremont Waters, his overs, I've been looking at that throughout the tournament. He's hit it twice. 16.5 at plus 100 against China, I thought was a joke. And I wrote about that. I was like, no one in China is going to guard him. He hasn't been efficient at all. He's going to be in this game. And he ended up getting 22 points on 9 of 14 shooting, 4 of 8 from 3 and 5 of 6 from 2. And Dominican Republic plays drop defense because Karl Anthony Towns is a 4, Angel Delgado is a 5. And guess what Tremont Waters can do? He can kill a drop defense. So I think that that's something to look for too as it relates to the 3-point shooting and why they can keep it close. If they don't make threes, they're done. But I think this is one of the more fascinating matchups in this sort of round of 16 stage. One, because of the rivalry, but two, the implications if Dominican Republic wins, they can get to the quarterfinals for the first time ever. And they could potentially, they're going to have to see Serbia to see who's going to, because I think Serbia is beating Italy. And I might be, I bet them to cover already. I think that's -6.5 or whatever it was. I don't think this Italian team is very good. Relative to most Italian teams. So I think DR and Serbia win and then face each other for first place. But if Puerto Rico can upset the Dominican Republic, then it gets interesting because I think they could potentially stun Italy if Italy is not careful either, though they're going to be underdogs against DR and Italy. So that's what I have on that.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brian. Serbia against Italy. Serbia is right now at FanDuel -6.5. Again, similar to what I said about Lithuania, that just seems too low to me. I would have put both those lines basically to be double digits effectively, like a -9.5 or better. Yeah. So Serbia, no Nikola Jokic on that team, but all the other J.O. blank I see, they're all on the team. Like we got Jovic handing out assists. We got I'm just going to, Joe, tell us about the Jovic bets we've been placing. I know that's the prop angle you've been on here.
Yeah, so I had to make my pivot, but Stefan Jovic, I think I'm saying that right, but basically he's the only real point guard on the team. So, I bet on him pre-flop to lead the team in assists at 4-1, and that is currently -2,500. So he just had a 13 assist game. And he's had 6, 6, and 13. So the dude is just a dimer, and he's not even scoring. It's actually like hilarious. He's got 5, 6, and 4 points. Like it's like it looks like an inverse line. So this is a spot against Italy, especially. Italy they like to kind of play fast. Their defense I don't think is particularly good. It's definitely a spot that I'm looking at. I have no idea what they're going to set this line at because they literally didn't offer an assist line in game 1. Then in game 2, they set it at a 4.5 at +110. And then they swung the juice to like -150 for the next game. So then he had 13. So I don't really know where they're going to put this at. They have no idea what they're doing right now, but I guess it's kind of caught up. So I've been betting on that. I think if you wanted to hedge, you could, but with that type of lead and with his role, I don't really think it's worth it. We got 4-1. That's by far the best of the number. I think that we can kind of just ride that one out. But I do like that. I'm probably going to look there against Italy, especially just based on what I think the pace is going to look like.
Yeah, so that, just to be clear, that is Stefan Jovic.
Yes.
Nikola Jovic, the Miami Heat player, also on the team. Be careful. I know, Brian, which Nikola prop did you play at one point?
Oh, we both played the Jovic assist. I had Nikola, and Joe has Stefan, and we both went over.
Do you
got both of them?
Do you
so
think
yeah,
that,
be careful when you like don't do the thing in fantasy football where you go to put your pick in and you grab the wrong guy, like you got the wrong names. Be careful with your Serbia bet.
Wait till Nikola Topic is an NBA player in a couple of years. He's coming.
I was going to say, Brian. Brian, do you think that Jovic's play has made him equally comparable to being traded for Damian Lillard yet, or what? Is this a good Miami trade package now?
People can go find the video on YouTube. Before he got drafted, I said he was going to be a top 10 player from this draft class because I love what he showed in Europe. And he won one of the Rising Stars Awards in that ABA Adriatic League or whatever it was that has been won by like NBA pros like Dario Saric and such. And he happened to go to the Heat. And I think it's going to work out whether he winds up in Miami or Portland.
Well, Group I should be a tasty group to watch. If you need another reason, whoever comes in runner-up in this group is very likely, assuming USA wins their group, runner-up in this group is the first knockout matchup for USA. So, assuming Serbia wins this group, which I think is probably the safe assumption, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, that's probably the game that is going to determine who's coming. And we might get Karl Anthony Towns facing off against Ant for a knockout game, and we get the DR through. Brian Cash's bet if we get that one too. So yeah, that one's looking good. Let's go to Group K. Again, we got to pick up the pace. Germany, Slovenia, that's Luka Doncic's team. Australia and Georgia. Georgia's along for the ride, I think, on this one. But Germany, Slovenia, Australia is an interesting trio. Australia is in the hole here. They lost to Germany already, so they are going to have to make up some ground. Again, don't get to play Germany again. So Germany, I believe, gets to play Georgia. Germany is big favorite Friday against Georgia. That's a win. So Australia is probably going to have to beat Slovenia. Australia is favored. They're -5.5 against Slovenia on Friday. That surprises me. Luka Doncic is the best player on the court. Luka Doncic is the best player in the tournament. Brian, what do you think about Luka, Australia, Germany? Where are you at on this group?
It's funny because I had among my pre-World Cup sprinkles, I sprinkled on Australia to make it to the final and Slovenia to make it to the semifinal. Just to see, and I think I just don't want to sleep on Australia, even though they have the loss to Germany. I still feel like they're a dangerous team. They're a deep team. Not having Jacques Landale worries me. I won't lie about that. And Slovenia, I get the sense that, this, unfortunately, it seems like Luka or bust, which was kind of their Olympic run. But I saw this team drag a team that's never been to the Olympics before and drag them to a bronze medal game where they lost to Australia, but they got to be fourth place in the Olympics despite never having been to the Olympics before. And oh, by the way, he was all first team Eurobasket at like 17 years old before he was ever in the NBA for a team that won.
And when they won the tournament.
Yeah. For the first time ever, Goran Dragic was the MVP of that. And Luka was like the co-star who was like, who's this guy? And then he should have won first overall the next year and he didn't. So I'm not sleeping on Australia for this group. I do think Georgia is along for the ride, like you said, and Slovenia is dangerous because they have Luka Doncic, but this group is the hardest one for me to sort of project. But I think Australia can get to another level that they haven't really showed yet. I was really high on them coming in as somebody other than the United States or Canada or France who can kind of break through here. But I haven't felt like they've really shown that level yet that I'm sort of waiting for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. I think I'm eyeing a little bit. I'm not sure Germany is necessarily a lock to go through here.
That's kind of what I'm getting at also.
Yeah. Right. I feel like, I think the way the bracket sets up or the group sets up, I think Germany would have to lose to Slovenia by probably a pretty wide margin in the second set of games. Like maybe they don't take care of Georgia by a ton of points and then Slovenia would have to beat them and by a bunch. But I'm underwhelmed. Dennis Schroeder being the star of the team does not do a lot for me. I know we get the Wagners, but Franz has not played the last couple of games. he's a lot of fun on this team. Like this is a fun group. A lot of NBA players on Team Australia. They have a type, like the type that is Ben Simmons and all the other Ben Simmons' players, like Josh Giddey and all the like, I do everything except, I don't really score or shoot the ball, but all the other stuff I'm really good at. It's great. I don't know how Australia has like 5 of those dudes on the team, but fun group to watch other than the Georgia games. Joe, who are you picking out of this group? Germany, Slovenia, Australia?
I mean, I'm going to take Luka. Like, I think that's the best decision that you can make. He's by far the best player, I think, in this part of the bracket. And I just trust him to lay it all out there on the floor. Whereas like some of these other teams, like you kind of said with Germany, if Franz plays, then maybe it's a little bit more interesting, right? But I think that his game is so well suited for this type of play. But I'd be surprised, like he probably won't play against Georgia, and then maybe like he'll play in the next game against Slovenia. But like I don't know that ankle. It's kept him out. He was shooting before the game against Finland without the boot, so maybe he'll play. But I mean, I could also see the Orlando Magic. I mean, granted, the Orlando Magic don't make the best like management decisions, but like maybe they'll make a call and be like, don't play our guy here, So we'll have to see what happens. But I do like Luka. I mean, the numbers that he's putting up are crazy, and I mean he had like a very inefficient game last time, and he still had like 19, 7, and 10. So fun fact though, I heard that there has never been a triple double in the World Cup before. So we'll see if Luka does that or not. I was surprised to hear that. I think Grant Asfeth, I don't know I'm butchering his name, but he's a Mavs guy. And I saw that he tweeted something about how there's never been a triple double in the World Cup before.
Not enough Russell Westbrook at the World Cup. You heard it here first. Yeah, I'm gonna have a really hard time not picking Luka as a 5.5 point underdog to Australia. That's like, I know it's not a 1-on-5 game, but I'm sorry. We got Luka Doncic. The one hesitation is I don't think Slovenia has to win that game because they get to play Georgia the next game and they're already 3-0. So
yeah,
like as long as you just don't get blown out by Australia because point differential is a tiebreaker, then I think you're probably safe. But I don't know. Slovenia is not the betting favorite to come out of this thing, despite having by far the best player in Luka Doncic. And I hate to just go down to one player, but I have a hard time not to with this one. Group L.
We have examples like I remember the 2019 World Cup. People were surprised that Brazil was able to beat Greece, even though Greece had Giannis, and it's kind of because they figured out Giannis is gonna just run and dunk at you, especially in 2019, and they guarded him well. And Brazil ended up winning that game. And it was like, okay, this Greece team all of a sudden is a little more fractured than we thought. So, I mean, maybe somebody,
Georgia, agreed.
Not Georgia, but maybe somebody figures something out.
Not Georgia, not the state, not the country. No versions of Georgia are going to win. Respectfully, I'm not going to say Luka is a better player than Giannis, but I think Giannis is the easier to take away player than Luka.
He is a better player in this competition.
I mean, Luka can dribble.
Yeah, internationally.
Like
no, yeah. Well, no, it's not. It's the point. The point really is though. Sometimes you could get surprised by like how a team can gear up for one guy. So I wonder if. But the thing with Luka that he does better than Giannis, I feel like, is he could get a lot out of Mike Tobey, for example, right?
Right. Yep.
Anthony Randolph, when he was there, he's no longer on this national team, but like certain guys that they're able to do that. So I want to see how he makes guys better in this competition as they move forward here. Because to me, this is maybe the most interesting group because one of these three teams who is very good, they're all very good. One of them is going to get knocked out here.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. You mentioned Brazil. They're in the last group here. Brazil and Latvia are 2-1. Canada and Spain 3-0 are the big favorites, I think, to come out of this group. And seems like probably the easiest group to pick, if you ask me. Canada has been killing people. Canada has, through 3 games, 3-0, a plus 111 point differential. That's ahead of even Team USA. USA is plus 103. So Canada's the 1 seed. Maybe Team USA is the 2 seed right now if we're reseeding this thing right now. So I don't think we should spend too long on this group here because it's Canada and Spain all the way. But Brian, I think you are a little hesitant maybe on Spain. How do you feel about either of these teams?
It's crazy because like Canada and Spain, if I were stacking up who are the teams that have been very good that I'm just skeptical of, like something about Canada, like I kind of, maybe because we're not used to them doing this at world level, even though they have a vastly different team now, I kind of just need to see a little bit more. If you think they're going to win the World Cup, they're at plus 350, still favorable price. I don't know if I can get there yet, but I do think that their defensive ceiling is as high as maybe anybody in this tournament, which, that's very interesting. But I also think, they have Dylan Brooks. And what happens if in a sudden death game, he shoots 2 for 11? Are you going to be able to overcome that if he's taking touches from SGA? And Spain is a team that they're just solid. I feel like they're almost boring to a lot of people. I think they're the defending champions, but this team is not as good as that team. They had Ricky Rubio then, and right now it's basically you're led by the Hernan Gomez's on this team, which I think a lot of people are going to be like, like are they?
Right.
Yeah, is Bo Cruz going to win a gold medal in the World Cup here?
He might. Spain could win this thing for sure.
So I think Spain, and because Spain has to play Canada now, and they did play in the scrimmage. Spain has to play Canada now. That's one I'm circling. Like, okay, because France is fraudulent, as we now know. Like, I look at even the Latvia game, what's happened since, just whatever happened there. That team is the biggest World Cup disappointment in modern basketball history. They just are. I think statistically you can prove that because they were the second favorites going into the tournament. But Spain versus Canada is a benchmark for me for both teams. Like where these teams are at, sizing them up, I'm like, I don't think it's a 50-50 game in terms of, because I think Canada's going to be the favorite when they play each other, but that's the one, and they're probably both going to be 4-0 heading into that because, I mean, with respect to Brazil and Latvia, I just think they're going to lose these games. So those are the two teams that I think will move on, but where they see it is going to matter based on who they play after that. So that's a good measuring stick game.
Yeah, I think that game you're mentioning, I think is the game of this group play round. Like we circle, at least I circled in the last round, Canada, France, and I circled it with the wrong color because I got the wrong pick on that one. But Canada set the tone and won by like 30 in the opening game. To me, that was the game that was going to set the tone for the round. I think this is the one because not only is it for the group win, but they're both going to advance out of that one in all likelihood. But whoever loses drops down to the USA side of the bracket. And now that's probably who you're playing in a semifinal if you get there. So again, you might get Ant against Bo Cruz. Maybe we get that matchup in a semifinal. Maybe get USA against Spain. That's always a tough opponent. And no Gasols anymore. That would have given this particular USA team a lot of problem.
Yeah.
But Spain could beat this Team USA. They played them pretty well in the scrimmage or whatever we had, the warm-up game. That these are definitely both teams that on their best day and even like on a B+ day, I think could beat this Team USA. Joe, do you have anything to add on Spain or Canada here?
No, just SGA boards has been pretty good. So if that's at like 5.5 or so, especially in these more competitive games, that's definitely a spot that I'm looking to grab that. But other than that, I think you guys covered it.
All right, well, we need to move toward wrapping up here. So I'm going to just cram everything else on our rundown into just kind of a final section here. So let's talk big picture. We're probably just going to skip the consolation stuff. So if you either of you got some consolation to add in, this is the time. But as you're looking big picture now, we talked about Team USA minus 145 at FanDuel, our sponsor. If you want to bet them to win the whole thing, you can bet on anyone on Team USA to win MVP. Well, you can bet anyone to win Team MVP, but Ant right now is the favorite. Anthony Edwards plus 125. Austin Reeves is second favorite. Austin Reeves was awesome, by the way, against Jordan. So he has really been great. Paolo is plus 900. He's third among Americans. Tyrese Halliburton is 11-1. Brunson 14-1. Jaren Jackson 16-1. Highest non-USA players for MVP. Shea is 3-1. He is heavily favored among those guys. And then Luka, 11-1 still. That was the pick that I think all of us were on. Luka coming into the tournament. I know I had that one 20-1 coming into the tournament. I still think that's a crazy number. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I'm willing to bet on Luka. I'm going to give my ticket and my money to Luka and see what he does with it. So MVP futures, you can bet on best non-USA finish if you want that sort of odds to that way. Like if it's Canada, Spain, any of these other teams, even if they lose in the final, you can win that way. I'm just going to throw out, we're wrapping up here. Joe, what else you got to say? What other bets do you have or futures that you want to throw out here before we wrap up?
I mean, I guess if you do like Team USA, like you kind of you got to play Ant. But just like it seems like he's going to be the guy that gets it. But I don't know if I see like a ton of value there right now. I think that if you are going to put out a bet, I still like, if you didn't have a Luka position, I really don't hate having a Luka position right now. Still, just because of the fact that I think the way the bracket's kind of breaking, you have a little bit of an opportunity to still get him at 11-1 when I still think he's the best player in the whole tournament. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I think it's a little tough to add some of these to lead in points, rebounds, and assists, just because one thing that we did talk about was with the consolation bracket, like these guys are still playing games and those categories, like those stats still count. So it's not like one where you can say like, oh, well, like this guy doesn't really play any more games. It's like they still might play some games, and even if they get knocked out, like if they're in the 8th to 5th part of the bracket, they're gonna still play more games. So that's definitely something to consider here, especially when you're looking at those. I think you're going to be a lot safer targeting a team specifically for that type of bet, just because you can kind of understand like, well, he's going to play the same amount of games presumably as his teammates.
Yeah, we say single elimination, but we're still playing. There is a 3rd place game, there is a 5th place game, a 7th place game, like where we're going all the way. I think that the teams that play in the championship probably get one extra game compared to most of the teams, but for the most part, everyone's still playing out here. Like Brian said at the top, still playing like for standings in Olympics and that sort of thing as well. So I have to say, we talk a lot when we do NBA about like, well, would you bet Nuggets to win the title or should you just bet Jokic MVP? Ant at plus 125 versus minus 145 for USA to win. I don't think I like that for Ant. I don't feel like Ant is that heavy of a favorite to win MVP for the US, especially considering the next 2 names are Austin Reeves and Paolo, who I promise you were not the next 2 names 4 or 5 days ago, right? So like if America just kind of does what it does and takes care of business, maybe we don't ever get that Ant moment. Like maybe USA just kind of rolls and it's somebody else every game. I don't know that he's necessarily, I'm doing the math in my head. Effectively, I think he has to win MVP something like 65% of the time that USA presumably would win. I don't believe they'd give MVP to an American that if USA did not win the tournament. I do think Luka could win MVP, not as the champion. This is not the NBA Finals. We don't make the rule, the unspoken, you got to win to do this. We twice in the last few cycles have had a non-champion win MVP. Yeah. So I think if Luka and Slovenia even get to the semis, he is extremely in play there. Shea, maybe the same sort of thing, as good as he's been. To me, those are the superstars on their team. I don't think Ant rises to that level. So I would rather play the Team USA minus 145 than the Ant, just to give myself some cushion. Brian, what other bets are you looking at here as we wrap up?
So I think you can still look at stat leaders, because the way this is going to shake out is everyone who doesn't make the quarterfinals is going to be capped at 5 games. And everyone who does will play 8. So the last 8 teams are going to play 8 games, because you still have to classify who's going to finish 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So you're playing 8 games if you get to at least the quarterfinals of the tournament. And Luka Doncic right now to lead the tournament in points is minus 110. So if you think Slovenia, because this is really the key here, if you think Slovenia is getting to the quarterfinals, bet that. Because Luka Doncic probably gets that, right?
And quarterfinals just means knockout play at all, right? They just make the knockout.
If you just make the knockout round, because even if they lose, yeah, even if they lose that and it's like, oh, but they're not going to win or they're not going to get to the semis, it's like it doesn't matter because they still have to play for like 5th place, 6th place, 7th place, like whatever, right?
Right.
So this is how Team USA played all 8 games in 2019 despite finishing 7th. The problem was they lost 2 of the last 3 games they played. But they still played the 8 games. If you think Canada is going to play all 8 games, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is plus 300 in scoring. One I would advise against. Rondae Hollis Jefferson is third in betting right now.
Our man from Jordan's not getting that 8th game. He's not coming for it.
Right. You know, like, I don't know why he's level with Anthony Edwards here. Now, look, in the consolation games, maybe they're saying, look, he might get 50 and 40, and this is what it is. But I don't think that's going to happen. And then with rebounding leaders, talking about the USA group again, if you like Lithuania to come out of that with Team USA, Jonas Valanciunas plus 300 has the shortest odds to lead in rebounds right now. That's really interesting as well. I don't know, like, we'll see ultimately how Lithuania does. But I don't think because, you know, I don't know what to expect from this Lithuanian team. I'm not sure that that's something that I would do, right? And then before that, it gets a little bit murky. And Luka Doncic right now is leading assists. Assists I'm staying away from. Luka Doncic plus 285. Stefan Jovic plus 600. Yeah. Now, if you think Serbia, and they should, you think Serbia is going to get into at least the quarterfinals, Stefan Jovic, if he keeps putting up 13 assists in the game, those are some things I would look at. And then with futures, like, I think now if you haven't bought into Team USA, I would do it minus 145 before that number becomes less palatable. Maybe it stays around there, but I think just do it now if you're interested. Canada is at plus 350. If you think they're going to beat Spain, I would say bet them now because that number is going to drop after they beat Spain. I don't know if they're going to beat Spain, so I'm not going to do anything with Canada yet. And I was trying to entertain like the non-USA Canada bets as I've been doing in this tournament. And Australia's plus 1,100, Spain's plus 1,200, Serbia's plus 1,200, Germany plus 14, Slovenia's plus 18 or something along those lines. And I just can't. I kind of need to see the first game of round 2 to sort of get there with any of the other teams. I did take Australia, a flyer on them before this started. Don't feel as great about it now, but ultimately we'll see because we still have a bunch of games left in this tournament.
All right, I'm going to put you guys on the spot for, I want 2 things from you before we wrap up here. Last thing, I want to know, give me your final. Who plays, who wins, and then I want one other bold prediction of anything left in the tournament. So let's start with the final. Joe, who plays in the final? Who's your champ?
Let's do, and I'm not the bracket. I'm a little confused with the bracket sometimes, but let's go with USA, Canada, and the United States wins just because we have to. I'm not going to give it. It would be un-American for me to give out anything else other than that. But I will say that my bold prediction is that the MVP comes from neither of those teams, and it's Luka Doncic.
All right. I like it. Brian, give me your final. Give me your bold prediction.
Part of me is like, Luka can really carry the Slovenian team to the finals. But I kind of think USA is a team that I feel like they have the path and they could just get there, right? Anything could happen, but USA is a team I feel confident in saying that they'll get to the finals. Beyond that, something about Spain, I'm like, I don't want to sleep on them too much. And I'm staring at them. They're plus 1,200 to win the whole thing, which means they're probably plus 600 or 700 to get to the finals at this point. I need to check that. But that's an interesting bet for me. If they beat Canada, then I would really look at USA versus Spain potentially as the finals. I think whoever wins between Canada and Spain could really get to that point of the tournament. But I think Team USA has to be considered the favorite right now, unless Canada beats Spain. If Canada beats Spain, that could change. And especially if they do it by like 20, 25 points, then I might be like, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander might unseat Nikola Jokic as the best player in the world if that were to happen.
Okay.
Not for real. Not for real.
Let's settle down there.
although SGA MVP future. I might bet that if they beat Spain.
All right, on that. You got it. So you got whoever they're facing. So wait, what's your final? You got Team USA wins the final.
Just to be different, I'll go USA Spain right now, and that USA wins.
All right. I'm going to go with USA over Serbia.
Ooh,
And my bold prediction is Germany goes out in the group rounds. Germany does not win another game. Wait, no, Germany plays Georgia. Germany wins another game, but does not get out of the group play. That's my bold prediction. It's going to wrap it up for Buckets. For Brian Fonseca and Joe Dolera, thanks for listening. True sickos, an hour deep into FIBA World Cup. Get up, get some coffee, set the alarm, find basketball 1891 or whatever the heck it's called, courtside 1891. Watch some FIBA basketball in the next week and check out theactionnetwork.com. Find our article, be up each day with our picks. Thank you for listening. Let's get buckets.